Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot Connection with the Weekly Comic Book Roundup. We've covered this week's X-Men books, Avengers books, as well as this week's and last week's X-Men, Avengers, and Star Wars books. Now it's become time to move on to excuse me, this week's and last week's Spider-Man books, as well as this is last week's Miscellaneous Marvel books. Kicking things off with Symbiote SpiderMan Crossroads, number 4. Where we left off, back during the time when Spider-Man was wearing the symbiote costume, which would later become Venom. Well, there came a point when he tried to prevent the theft of one of the Norn Stones. And eventually ended up being sent to the Crossroads dimension. Of course, he took the stone with him. Now, this is during the same period, the Hulk was in the Crossroads dimension. They left the Crossroads dimension, ended up on another realm, and in this other realm, well, something else took over the Hulk. An entity related more to his father, Brian Banner. Anyway, eventually they would make their way back to Earth, only to end up in the clutches of the Deviants, the enemies of the Eternals. Gee, funny that timing. Anyway, oh, and back on Earth, Doctor Strange is trying to get Spidey back with the help of Black Cat. It's going about as well as one would expect. So, the issue begins with the Eternals having learned of the return of one of the Norn Stones and going after it. In the Deviant's base, Brian Banner is wreaking havoc, and Crow, leader of the Deviants, explains who they are and who they are and where everyone's at. Meanwhile, Black Cat goes to get a shard of a Norn Stone from a magic shop in New York for Doctor Strange, and has to deal with Black Talon for about a second before she uses a high-powered taser on to knock him out cold. But the Eternals arrive at the Deviant's base, and Crow explains to Brian what the stone is. It is one of the Norn Stones, but it's a specific one, the Matrix Stone. It's a stone created to control the power of the other Norn Stones. And it has been lost until now. But Brian discovers that the stone is apparently limited by the will of its possessor, and well, he has plenty of will, he states. But the Eternals show up. They do what they can to deal with the Deviants and with Brian Banner. And also showing up are Carnella and her assassins. Meanwhile, Carnella removes the stone from Brian, reverting Brian back to the Hulk. And as the Hulk. And so the Eternals, as well as Spider-Man and the Hulk, go through Carnella's portal and end up in Nornheim, the realm of Carnella, whom she states now has sufficient power to challenge Odin himself for dominance of the 9 realms. And that is where the issue ends. honestly, these Symbiote Spider-Man minis have been really fun, and I hate the fact that they've got such a limited period for coming out because you're telling stories within the framework of the uh, the Black Costume Saga, and at the time, I want to say there were already two ongoing Spidey titles, so you're pretty much having to find well, this takes place between these four panels, that kind of thing. So yeah, but otherwise, I mean, it's a fun. It's fun, and but yeah, I mean, the only thing I would change about these is getting a different artist. I have my issues with Greg Land, as do many other readers. But anyway, moving on to our next book, we've got Miles Morales Spider-Man number 31. So where we left off, Miles had a date with Miss Starling, which because he was being himself, being Spider-Man, doing good, he was a little late for. But she was also kind of running late too, and so neither one had the opportunity to change out of their hero outfits. However, as they kissed, they ended up in the crosshairs of none other than Taskmaster. And so they're talking. It's a foggy night. Apparently, Miles is a corny boyfriend. But also, she doesn't communicate that well, and she's afraid he's kind of that he's times like, hey, I texted you 5 times, and I saw you on Insta, but he retracts the criticism. But his spider sense goes off, so tells her to get down, and an arrow grazes his arm. More arrows land around them. And they do what they can to escape Taskmaster, but then he reveals himself, fights off the pair, and actually, that's a good hit in. Venom Blast Charge Punch that actually does kind of knock Taskmaster on his ass for a minute. But turns out Miles isn't Taskmaster's target. Starling is. And so he incapacitates them both and simply takes Starling with him. And while Miles tries to follow, the web line he attaches to Taskmaster's airship is cut by Tasky himself. And that is where the issue ends. I get the feeling that somehow that Taskmaster was hired to go after Starling due to the fact that she is the Vulture's granddaughter, and she was making moves against. And when she first popped up, she was rather violently attacking Tombstone's operation, so it's understandable someone would likely put a hit on her. Though I would say I don't know so much go as far as a hit so much as they want her for something, which points more to the because she's Vulture's granddaughter angle. Anyway, moving on to our next book, we've got Amazing Spider-Man number 76. Where we left off, Ben Reilly, the clone of the Spider clone, had returned, and it turns out had been hired by the Beyond Corporation to be their Spider-Man, as they own the trademark to Spider-Man. And he strongly suggested to Peter that Peter take a step back. Anyway, the two of them took on the UFOs at Empire State. And while Ben's suit has all manner of neat high-tech upgrades that protect against things like radiation and getting hit by, a guy made of friggin' metal, Peter doesn't. And he actually began to exhibit signs of radiation poisoning. So the issue begins with Ben calling May, pretending to be Peter, and explaining what happened. When MJ shows up, but Peter's spider sense goes off, leading to basically seizures, which, yeah. But Ben returns to the Beyond Corporation until, and it's kind of, hey, there's some things I need to look into before I go back after the UFOs, but Marcus explains that no. You gotta go after the UFOs. The longer they're free, the worse you look. But Ben tells his girlfriend very briefly, very simply, that Peter got hurt and it's bad. But Peter and MJ talk, and May goes find the doctor, while Ben talks with Misty Knight and Colleen Wing. He's got some extra loadouts for his costume for dealing with the UFOs. Lead shaft for X-ray and vacuum bearings for vapor. The chemically sensitive fabric of the suit should help Ben deal with ironclad and vector in the old-fashioned way. But before going off to capture the UFOs, Ben goes to the hospital to talk to Peter. Basically, he explains that he feels he needs Peter's blessing, especially now. He tries to apologize. He does his best. He actually does feel bad about Peter being hurt like this. And so, but Peter says, Ben asking this, makes it feels like he's asking to share Peter's life. And but Peter adds that it makes it even real easy to ignore that it's even harder for Ben to ask, because Ben deserves to be who he is, and he deserves to do what makes him happy, and he deserves to be Spider-Man. So yeah. But after Ben leaves, Peter tells MJ that he can't feel his body. Meanwhile, as Peter goes into a coma, because Ben suits up and goes after the UFOs. Who are apparently all waiting for someone. But Ben shows up, hits Vapor with the vacuum bearings, hits X-ray with the lead shaft, and then deals with Ironclad and simply has Vector left as the issue ends. Actually, solid issue. I've already there's already been some speculation just from the Free Comic Book Day Spider-Man Beyond prologue that maybe the Beyond Corporation is as their history is not exactly squeaky clean. Perhaps they're kind of playing both sides here. You know, basically putting getting supervillains that paying supervillains to be in specific places at specific times so that Ben can deal with them. So, and the whole thing with the UFOs that really feels like there's someone manipulating events from behind the scenes. They're just waiting just waiting around. Yeah, something that doesn't feel right. Anyway, like the X-Men titles we had this week, though, Amazing Spider-Man had a Marvel Masterpieces variant cover. So did the previous issue, and I'm actually going to try and track that down. The previous Masterpieces variant was for Hobgoblin, as you can see, this is Green Goblin. Side note, I'm not sure if this is the case or not. I don't remember exactly how the Masterpieces cards were. If they had like little bios of the characters, but if I remember correctly, the Masterpieces cards were released in '91. So the Green Goblin at that time was actually Harry Osborn, not Norman. So, but I'd have to either find the actual card or one way or the other. I'd have to find the actual card. So yeah. Anyway, moving on to our next book, we've got Death of Doctor Strange, number 2. Where we left off, Doctor Strange had been murdered, and to help make sure his affairs were put in order promptly, Doctor Strange arrived. Or, well, a past Doctor Strange. But something is happening, especially now that Earth has no Sorcerer Supreme. We know that Agamon was the first to strike, and the Go-Between shook as a vast swath of the purple dimension was transplanted across a shattered barrier. Then Dagoth, who raised the sunken city of Kalamesh from the seafloor off the coast of Cornwall, calling due archaic blood debts from the old families who still remembered their ancient allegiances to him. Next, Tiboro claimed his ancient territory in the jungles of Peru, while Umar, never one for socialization, manifested a portion of her kingdom in Antarctica. So, Strange has to figure out what's what. And he explains what happened. Years and years ago, as a precautionary measure, Doctor Strange took a week of his life and placed it in magical stasis in the event of his untimely demise. But Captain America contacts him and basically tells him about the various invasions, and upon realizing that Strange was the Sorcerer Supreme, well, Strange suggests that they're not. Basically asks if any of the invading forces are moving troops, to which Cap says no, but they do seem to be digging in and claiming territory in large and populated areas. And to which Strange says, okay, that's fine, ignore them. Explaining that, the world was invaded as soon as the barriers fell, and yet they're not immediately consolidating power, laying siege to large cities. It looks like they're on the run. And then Strange receives a telepathic call for help. They're coming for me. I need you. It's Clea, the girl from the dark dimension, as he puts it, who explains that the three mothers are after her. And the three mothers arrive. The weird the crawling, and the crown. In fact, yeah. And so, Mordo says, well, I'll find out who killed you and kill them myself, so bye. The Avengers show up to help, but yeah, Strange, Wong, Clea, Dr. Voodoo, half of the Avengers, they don't fare too well against the Three Mothers. And but the three mothers return having sampled the earth and found that, oh yeah, there's plenty to keep their child alive, to sustain their child on the earth, and they will be back, and that is where the issue ends. Very interesting. I wasn't really sure about picking this up in the first place, the series up in the first place. I like Doctor Strange, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, just calling it something the death of Doctor Strange is like, you know, you got a new Doctor Strange movie coming out in what, a little more than 6, well, we'll call it 6.5 months. Yeah, Doctor Strange is death should have quotes around it, basically, because what? Yeah, you get what I'm saying. It's comics, but it's still an interesting story, and I really am digging how Jed MacKay is handling old past Doctor Strange. It shows a definite love and reverence of the older Doctor Strange stories, and I think that's awesome. In fact, at the point in time that the young Strange is from, he's not Sorcerer Supreme yet, and he still calls himself Doctor Strange, Master of Black Magic, which actually elicited a chuckle from well, myself, yes, but also from Baron Mordo. But anyway, moving on to our last book for the video, we've got Darkhold Iron Man. So, in Darkhold Alpha, 5 heroes were summoned to to read portions of the Darkhold, to kind of so that they were prepared for the madness. They each read too much, however. Those five heroes were Spider-Man, Blade, Black Bolt, the Wasp, and Iron Man. And instead of becoming a modern-day version of the Darkhold Defenders, they became the Darkhold Defiled. And so, Darkhold Iron Man simply tells the tale of... tells the twisted version of the Defiled Iron Man's origin. He tried to make the suit do more, so it would heal him. However, it went too far, and instead of replacing by basically, you know, it was designed so it would replace skin. Well, they decided, hey, you know what would be better than flesh? Iron. And so, yeah. But Tony kept working on it, but it just got worse and worse the more he was leaking out of the suit. Again, just trying to make, trying to do better, but, the machine, misinterprets everything. The computer misinterprets everything. Eventually, doing scans, Pepper discovers that the suit is destroying his bones and replacing everything with metal. this weird combination of metal and flesh, and eventually goes crazy, drags in Jarvis and Happy, and puts breaks their bodies, puts them into his next suit, and well, yeah. And then he goes out into the world, and eventually he's got bits of flesh seeping out from the seams of the armor as he leads Pepper to his newest armor for her to get into. And that is where the issue ends. That's oh, that was something. A body horror angle to Iron Man. Whoever would have thought, right? I mean, it's an alternate version, yes, but still, oof. Yikerinos. Anyway, that's going to do it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying, live long and rock hard.